What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez. You're in a different background again. Where are you, bro?
This time I'm actually out in Mexico. We're at Rocky Point celebrating buddy's bachelor party.
Nice.
And I tell you what, man, like, I apologize to all 18 people watching this, but you know, I look tore up. I'm not actually dying. I just look like I am. So you know, bear with me here. We're gonna get through this pretty well. But the bags in my eyes are no indication of whether or not I know what we're doing with football. So I think we'll be okay. I'm ready to do this. But after this, we're gonna go drink some more. Jesus, how did Alabama score a touchdown on that? You should be watching this game if you're not. But anyways, I'll go back to you.
This is pre-recorded, so I don't think they're going to be watching. Well, cool. Thanks for joining, guys. This is Chiefs versus Ravens. And yeah, actually, I feel you, dude. I was out in the Everglades, and I got my ass kicked on the boat multiple times. It's just the humidity just gets at you, man, if you're not used to it. Being from Arizona, zero humidity, well, I'm just not used to it.
Yeah, right. Bro, it's rough.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Hit that like button real quick before we go on. Subscribe to the channel. We're doing showdown content for every showdown for NFL this year. At the beginning of October, you and I are going to be in the same room together doing a show. That's going to be crazy out there in Phoenix. That's going to be awesome. I'll be in Jacksonville next week for the Cardinals game. I'm doing a show on the road, and then we'll be traveling all around. So
we'll make it work, right?
We're going to make it work. You know, you're on a bachelor party right now doing a show. That's dedication right there, man. Good job.
Well, I got too much money on the line for these games, so yeah, I got to make sure that I'm doing my research still.
All right, guys. So obviously, Chiefs versus Ravens. This is gonna be a good matchup, man. I'm really looking forward to this. Although we've had some, on paper, bad matchups. There's been some besides the Bears, which they should never be on primetime again. Right. These games have been pretty good so far this year. You know, the Giants had a shot. They ended up losing that game, but man, it's been some pretty decent games. Should be a good game, as long as the IR Ravens are able to, you know, put enough people on the field to actually complete a game. This should be a pretty decent game.
And at the very worst, like, I mean, we still get to watch Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes play. You know what I mean? So but even if that sucks, it's still even. What the fuck was that? My goddamn house is talking to me, apparently. Anyways, yeah, so like, regardless of what happens, we're still going to have some exciting football. I mean, this is definitely going to be Daniel Jones and who the fuck was the other guy? Taylor Heineke. Yeah. So, I mean, we're still going to have a more exciting Sunday night game than we would from, the Thursday night side of it. So even if it is a blowout and the Chiefs just dominate because the Ravens are going through their struggles, it still should be a worthwhile watch.
So it's going to be difficult to build with all the high salary. It's going to be nearly impossible. You can do it, but we're going to have to get creative at captain in order to get both quarterbacks and either Kelsey or Hill. It's going to be very difficult, and I think a lot of people, you're going to have to put a $200 guy in there, you're going to have to put a fourth-string running back, you're going to have to put some random bullet in to do that. But I think I have a couple of good options for at captain that we can jam in there, so stick with us. We're going to be building the lineup together. Obviously, we're doing our breakdown. We're going to go position by position. This is going to be one of those games where you're going to have to find that, you know, $1,000 guy or $200 guy to jam in, or it's not going to be super easy to build. So right. Let's just jump right into this here. KC visiting Baltimore. Thank God that Baltimore is at home for this game, because if they were on the road, it would not look pretty. It would not look pretty. So minus 197, the Chiefs is a 54 over/under total, -4 spread in favor for Kansas City. Thoughts on this? The road favorites here. I don't think you can blame Vegas at all for this. I think this is pretty accurate. Baltimore have any chance here, dude?
Yeah, I think they have a chance. I mean, as long as Lamar Jackson's on the field, they have a chance in any game.
Yeah.
He just has I mean, it's not even worth talking about that much. We've all seen him play, and he just has the ability to change the game in one play, and he doesn't need a run game to do that, right? He can do that on his own, and I think his pass game is highly underrated. Yeah. So, I definitely think that they're fine as long as Baltimore, Lamar Jackson's in the game. But I don't think that this is too crazy. In fact, I mean, if this was home game for Kansas City, you'd probably see closer to a 7-point spread. Mm-hmm. But again, you usually give 3.5 points to a home team anyway. So that's about what we're seeing here, right? Baltimore with those 3 points puts it at the 4-point spread. So I would expect this to. Honestly, I feel like it could go a little bit further in Kansas City's direction. The question marks that Baltimore has at running back does impact them a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, Kansas City is just too high-powered on offense, and I think they're obviously able to be in any game regardless of what's going on. So I'm just surprised it's not a little bit more in favor of Kansas City. But I do think Baltimore has a chance. I think it's kind of slim.
Well, there's some serious injuries to talk about here for Baltimore. Besides the ones we already know about, there's some other players that are questionable that could really impact how you build and can open up some huge value plays. We'll get to that in 1 second. But first, I want to talk about last week's game, week 1, for both of these teams. Obviously, Baltimore, we all saw that game. They should have won that game, realistically. They really should have won that game. I think it's a fluke. I think you play that game 10 times. I think Baltimore wins it 7 or 8 times. It's just one of those things. It's NFL. It happens. I don't think they're going to be too discouraged for losing that game. It sucks, but we can't judge them on that loss, in my opinion. Kansas City, I think we can judge them a little bit on the way they won that game. They're a crafty team. They're obviously solid, and I'll take Kansas City in any game against any team. But they didn't, they could have lost that game if it wasn't for a couple big mistakes from the Browns, that weird punt F up, and the late interception from Baker. I think we're having a different conversation. I think both of these teams are 0-1 coming into this game. So KC is not invincible this year. Their second best wide receiver is Mecole Hardman. I know they still have they still have Hill, they still have Kelsey. But they're not as deep as they were in the past, and that just happens when you go to the Super Bowl for a few straight years in a row. Players leave and go get paid.
Right.
So, one thing to keep an eye on is the rush defense for KC was not looking good. Baker was looking pretty good against them. The pass offense was okay against KC. So that's one thing to look at going into this game. We all know Baltimore will run the ball, and I think they're going to come out and just absolutely crush the ball this week. They didn't run as much last week as I thought they would, but I think they're going to come out and run the ball quite a bit against that KC defense. So real quick, anything jump out to you before we get to injuries on last week's games that you thought can impact or favor you one way or another this week?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we're going to have a little bit of recency bias in the Baltimore team. I think just some of the stuff that happened with Latavius Murray specifically in the Baltimore game may take some ownership away from Ty'Son Williams. Yeah. And I just think it's very important to remember that regardless of what Latavius Murray is doing in that offense, Ty'Son Williams is going to end up being the workhorse back until they get maybe some of these other running backs.
And he's getting targets too. He's running those routes.
I get he didn't get much love in the second half of that game, but I don't know that John Harbaugh is going to change from his run attack style, right? I mean, they were doing better when they were consistently giving him the ball. So I definitely think we're going to see a little bit more love from him this week, and I think we'll get to that in a little bit, but I think it's important to keep an eye on the recency bias. I expect his projection to be kind of low. I mean, DraftKings didn't even change his price, did they? So, we'll get there, but I think it's definitely something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on.
He's middle ranged, and I think he'll go under on. Like you said, I think some of these other distraction running backs that are coming in for Baltimore, like Lat Murray and Freeman, I think they're going to take away ownership from Ty'Son, and I think he's just going to benefit still. He's still going to be the number one guy. He's still going to get those targets out of the backfield. So let's look at the injuries here. The Chiefs are fine. They literally have no players designated for injury in this game, but obviously we're dealing with some issues in Baltimore. Some of the biggest things to talk about fantasy-wise right off the bat is Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, ankle injury. He's questionable. from what I can tell and just reading Twitter, it seems like, if I had to take a guess, it's like a 60-40 odds that he does play. It's going to be close. And Devin Duvernay with a groin injury. For a player like that who's on the return team, who's number 3 wide receiver, a guy that can be big in gadget plays, end arounds, draws, things like that. With a groin injury, that's tough to get over, man. So I don't know what's going to happen with Duvernay. If he's out, it opens up. If he's out, it doesn't necessarily open up anything for, Marquise Brown or, revenge game for Sammy Watkins here. But I think if Marquise Brown is out and Duvernay plays, that's a huge bump to Duvernay. So keep an eye tomorrow throughout the day. I know you guys will be watching. You guys will be watching football all day, but keep an eye on the reports as those late games start to wind down, and see what's coming out with inactives. If both of these guys are out, it opens up a whole lot of value. But if I had to bet, I would say minimum of one of these guys will play. Now, from here, we're not starting Marlon Humphrey on Showdown, but that really, really impacts the other side of the ball. You got a back injury for Humphrey, and you got Jimmy Smith with an ankle injury. If both of these guys are out, I mean, that should change the line, in my opinion. Don't you think?
Yeah. If both those guys are out, this game could get real ugly real quick. And not to cheat, but my fate of the night would probably change. If Marlon Humphrey is probably the best cornerback in the NFL, and I don't know if that's I don't know if people are going to fight me over that kind of a comment. And I know my Bama bias is showing, but he's incredibly good. And Jimmy Smith has been probably a top 25 corner for pretty much the past decade. Like, I don't even know how long he's been in the league, right? I'm pretty sure you made a fake player called Jimmy Smith in Madden
2001 or something.
When we were like, 12, right? So, and obviously we weren't 12. Never mind. Anyways, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, if Marlon Humphreys and Jimmy Smith are out of this game becomes a completely different setup. I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill is going to be a pain in the ass to cover in the first place, and I think Marlon Humphreys can help with that a lot. I think that'll probably be more of a Jimmy Smith matchup, anyways, but. Having those kind of corners, those lockdown corners, you're going to take a lot of pressure off the secondary. So I don't know, man. I fully expect both of them to play. I would consider them like up there with LeBron and Anthony Davis, where they're just listed as questionable all the time, just because of who they are and what they do to the team. Like if this dude had a paper cut, I'm pretty sure he'd be on the sideline. So. I mean, when it comes to game day, he'll be out there, though. I really expect to see both of them play. If not, then I'm loading up on Onslaught.
Yeah, that's 5-1s like crazy. It's going to be a blowout. There's no way they can stop them. I mean, even at full strength, it's going to be tough to stop the Chiefs. Obviously last week, Marlon Humphrey, there was some little controversy. It seemed like they were keying on Hunter Renfrow for whatever reason. So, that's an interesting. I don't know if there's anything behind that. I don't know if this is Bounty Gate or 2.0 or what. I think maybe we're reading into it too much, but they really keyed off on him and gave him a couple dirty hits last week. So I don't think that really affects anything here, but it's something worth mentioning. All right. Anything else to add before we jump over to the breakdown?
No, let's get into it.
All right, dude, let's do this. Break it down. All right, guys. So as you know, we're going position by position here. We're going to start out with quarterbacks as usual. Patrick Mahomes at 12.6K. And Lamar Jackson 11.8K. This is going to be tough. I mean, look, they're priced correctly. But I want both of them in every lineup if I can. Now, I know you can get fancy with some of these Millie Maker lineups and huge tournaments and fade Lamar or fade Patrick Mahomes if you think that this game can be a blowout in the third quarter and they start running the ball more. I just don't see how you can not have both of them in your flex in tournaments. Do you agree with that? Can you see any way to not have both of them in your lineups?
The only way that I wouldn't have both of them is probably if Marlon Humphrey and Jimmy Smith are both out. that's really the only scenario in which I'm considering maybe fading like a guy like Patrick Mahomes, just because he may not be as needed. But other than that, no, I'm going to have both in flex for pretty much every single lineup. I don't think I'll be able to fade either one of them. And, I'm kind of curious to see what Lamar Jackson's ownership comes in at, right? He wasn't in the optimal last week. This is another one of those scenarios when we're talking about week one overreactions and recency bias. Like Lamar Jackson is like that is an outlier performance, him not being in an optimal lineup.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I think that might dip his ownership a little bit, but again, nothing's changed, right? Le'Veon Bell does not know this offense. Devontae Freeman doesn't know this offense. Lat Murray doesn't know this offense, and Lat Murray is a second string running back, and he will be for a very long time. I just don't know that he's a number one guy. So
exactly.
I mean, all that does is benefit Lamar Jackson. I can spend hours talking about why I should play Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, but we all know the reasons why. They're going to score a lot of fantasy points almost 95% of the time, right? I mean, I would expect them to be in optimal lineups 90 to 95% of the time, both of them. So I'll have a pretty heavy exposure to both of them.
I think if you have to choose one guy, you fade Mahomes, and it sounds crazy, but Lamar is a huge chunk of that offense. Patrick Mahomes, obviously he's the best quarterback in the NFL, but for this particular matchup, there's other players on that team that can take over. And you get 3 or 4, you get 3 touchdowns from Tyreek Hill or 3 touchdowns from Kelsey, and then they run the ball in the second half. Mahomes, he'll score good, but there's a chance because of his price, there's a chance that he could end up not in the optimal.
Yeah, and some of his performances, especially now that they're becoming just a much more well-rounded team and just a winning team, right? Some of your performances are going to be a little bit more efficient, right? I mean, we're going to see 200 and 220 yards with 3 touchdowns, where it may not be the fantasy output that you need, but if you're up 21-3, you're still probably not going to continue to throw the ball that much in the second half. And Andy Reid does know how to milk the clock, right? He's one of those kind of advanced offensive minds. So yeah, exactly what you're saying, man. If you are looking at somebody to fade, I think Patrick Mahomes might be that kind of guy, and especially without Marlon Humphreys or Jimmy Smith, right? I mean, again, you're looking at, they could jump ahead 14-0, and all of a sudden it's going to say you later. Anyways,
well, speaking of let's get into running backs here. So CEH looked pretty good last week. When it comes to share of carries, snap share wise, actually 72% CEH. Darrell Williams, whatever you want to call him, 19%, and Jerick McKinnon 5%. I'm not considering Jerick McKinnon in this game at all. If you're in a super, millie maker type, you want to throw him in as a bullet, and he's $200. If he gets you 50 yards randomly on a crazy run, you're loving it. But I'm not loving Jerick McKinnon at 5% of the snaps. He didn't even get a single carry last week. Michael Burton and Blake Bell had carries over Jerick McKinnon. So I'm actually unchecking him. I'm not going to have him. When it comes to CEH, he looked pretty good. I mean, he had 14 attempts. He actually had 17 routes run, 3 targets, 3 receptions. So if you're getting 17 routes run, Darrell Williams only had 4 routes run. So I think CEH is the clear number 1 here. And if this is a tight game, he's still going to be in potentially on third down for those passing opportunities. I'm actually more likely to fade Darrell Williams, Jerick McKinnon completely, I think. At 2,600, you could think about it a little bit. Maybe he gets a goal line draw or something random, like we saw from Antonio Gibson in that game the other night. But I don't know, man. I like CEH in this game. I think his ownership is going to come in a little bit low because he's in that zone where 7,400, you can't just fit him in with the studs. You got to fade 2 of the major studs in order to fit him in. So thoughts on CEH, if he comes in at 25% ownership or something, you got to go a little bit heavier on him, don't you? It all kind of depends on the ownership though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the ownership. And again, I mean, what you think is going to happen in this game. If you think that there's potential where, the Kansas City Chiefs just jump out ahead, I definitely think that gives a boost to CEH, right? We know that Andy Reid's going to get him involved in the pass game a little bit. We know that he's going to get some opportunities in the spring game, but again, I'm not high on him unless I'm scripting specifically like towards a blowout. Now, granted, his price at 7,400 makes it a little bit easier to consider getting some of them, but right now I'm just not too high on any of these guys, to be completely honest with you. Now, the only I honestly kind of like Jerick McKinnon, and we'll get into more $200 guys, but I don't mind a $200 just absolute punt option on some of this, because I do feel better playing him than Darrell Williams, right? Darrell Williams has to hit a certain value at 2,600, where Jerick McKinnon, if he does nothing at $200, it might be okay, so that I can at least have Patrick, Lamar, Hollywood, and maybe Kelsey or Hill, right? So those are things that I definitely think you can consider on a slate like this, especially when the ownership projections are so low on these $200 guys. Like, that's not really that big of a dart throw, in my opinion, when you're looking at some of these $200 guys on a slate like this.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing, too, is, after crunching a couple hundred lineups before the show here, McKinnon was jammed into about 35% of the lineups because you just need that guy. And even at a projection of like less than a point, he's still being jammed in because you got to find some value. Him and Pringle were in basically either one of those in every single one of the lineups. So that's one way to be different, is kind of avoid some of these low owned guys, because I think they're going to get just automatically jammed in if you're not capping these guys, they're going to get jammed into a lot of your lineups, and I'll put them in 5% of my lineups maybe, but that's it. All right, anything else to add here?
No, man, let's move on.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Baltimore. So Tyson Williams, 6,800. I think he's in a great position here. I have him listed as one of my studs here for this team. He is, he got 49% of the snaps last week. That was his very first game starting. Scored a nice touchdown there. And
what does it say on your screen there? It looks like Tyson records not found.
What? What
is it saying for above Latavius Murray? I don't see Tyson Williams on your thing. It says
really? Like, is your
no, now I see that, but go back to look. Oh, there it is. Tyson Williams. Yeah, it fixed.
Oh, it must have been you on your end. You're just probably seeing some weirdness. That's probably it.
Okay.
But I see him. I see he's on my feed.
Yeah, no, it's there now. Sorry,
okay,
man.
Cool. No, it's all good. I'm glad you're double checking me here. 6,800 for him. He was literally at 6,800 last week.
Yeah.
And he's your number one running back. He got 49% of the snaps, which is a little concerning, but a lot of that came with Lat Murray, 31% in the second half. Even, Lat Murray didn't make the optimal, and he scored a touchdown, but he was at, 5,400 or something? Let me look.
Yeah, he was, I think it was like 48 or something.
Oh, he's
like
at 60. He was at 6,200 for week one. Is that right? I don't know if that's right or not. I don't think that's right. He was in the 5,000s. Anyways, he's a little cheaper this week, even after scoring a touchdown. I don't mind Latavius Murray this week, but at 5,200, you got to have 2 touchdowns out of him almost, because the cost of putting a $5,200 guy in and leaving out some of these raw point scorers, it's huge. Even if he scores you a touchdown, doesn't mean he's going to be, it was a successful play on his end. I think Latavius Murray is one of these guys where I'll get I'll be with the field, but last week I faded him completely, and it didn't hurt me that bad. Even then, because I think he was 15% owned. He'll be more owned. I think he'll be in the 20% ownership range this week. I don't know that we see Lev Bell this week at 1,800. I really don't know. So this is one of these things where I think 1 or 2 of these guys is going to be inactive. I don't know. I mean, they let go of so they released Trenton Cannon, right? He had a couple carries. So Trenton Cannon actually had 2 attempts. He didn't run any routes. So I don't know if Trenton Cannon is kind of that third down receiving back type guy. And same with Le'Veon Bell in this situation. So I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know if they're planning on. They released Trenton Cannon because they're planning on activating Le'Veon Bell. I don't know. Maybe they're planning on activating Devontae Freeman. Either way, I think you probably want to avoid these guys, in my opinion, because they're just such a coin toss. So thoughts on Murray, Bell, and Freeman, all these new faces here. Who's your favorite, if you even have one?
Patrick Hard. And I mean that. Latavius Murray's priced too high. Le'Veon Bell is priced too high. Devontae Freeman, I'm pretty sure is washed. I think Patrick Ricard is the guy, and he has passing game upside.
Yeah.
His price went from $200 to $1,000 in a week.
Yeah.
I think that indicates some significant usage in the offense. I mean, we saw it. We watched the game. I mean, we saw him get involved in the passing game, and at $200, 3 receptions for 12 yards is it's exactly what you need in this kind of game. Now at $1,000, like I still think he can get 3 receptions for 25, 30 yards. And again, at $1,000 in a game like this, we're going to need some sort of value to go with. And I don't hate Patrick Ricard. Now, what that means is, you're probably gonna have Lamar Jackson and Patrick Ricard stacks, but I think you can throw in Tyson Williams too, and you have kind of the primary core of the offense for Baltimore. And maybe you need to run a 4-2 this week, anyways, if we think Lamar Jackson and his offense is going to be playing catch up, right? So I think maybe taking Lamar, Tyson, Patrick, and then one of the pass catchers might be the way to go, and then running it back with Pat and someone else. So I think we can try some of that stuff when we get to the lineup build. But right now, I think Patrick Ricard would be my favorite guy outside of Tyson Williams, who, again, they're down one more back. Regardless if any of these guys are active, I mean, Latavius Murray would have to steal some pretty significant usage away from Tyson Williams to make him not valuable at the $6,800 price tag.
We know what Latavius Murray is. We've watched him quite a bit from Oakland to New Orleans to now Baltimore. He's the kind of guy that'll get you 5 yards here, 5 yards there. He's not going to break a 70-yard run, most likely. He'll get you a random red zone touchdown here and there, but he's not going to break the slate usually. And at 5,200, I don't think he's going to break the slate this week. I think if you want to fade him, I would encourage that. Maybe go under the field on him. And look, with Tyson Williams, he ran 16 routes, 4 targets, 3 receptions. He had 13% of the target share out of the backfield. Not bad for a running back at 6,800. I would rather, in my opinion, I'd actually rather go Tyson Williams than CEH this week. I'm going to have more exposure to Tyson Williams. Even though they're the underdog, I think he's going to be in the game when they're passing the ball more so than Lat Murray. So anything else to add here? What should we keep an eye out for tomorrow? If Le'Veon Bell is active and Freeman's out, would you consider getting some Le'Veon Bell or vice versa? No?
Not at 1,800. Devontae Freeman maybe at 400, but again, I just don't expect them to be involved in the offense. I think the thing that we need to see tomorrow is I could, you could get something crazy where Harbaugh just says, "Hey, we're gonna run Latavius Murray today." He's just going to be our guy.
You could.
So that's something to keep an eye out for. Maybe Tyson Williams wasn't feeling well. Maybe there was some sort of injury that wasn't disclosed that they kind of cut back on his usage in that second half. So, just pay attention to what's going on. But I think Tyson Williams is the guy. Outside of that, I really don't care about what's going on with their backfield anymore.
And you think it can happen? I mean, now that Lat Murray's been there for more than 3 days at this point, maybe they want to feed him the ball more. He did get more carries. And in that second half, he actually dominated when it came to actually being on the field. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Just be cautious because it could go either way.
We don't know. We don't really know. It looks like Tyson Williams is the guy, but Murray started to get some love in that second half. So it's still there's still a lot of recency bias that's going to impact us. And again, I think that might actually help boost some Murray's ownership, and I think that makes Tyson Williams a little bit more enticing play, in my opinion. But
the Baltimore running backs this week is the equivalent of like playing the Spurs in basketball DFS.
Yeah, are you playing Patty Mills?
Patty Mills, or Podal, or whatever the hell his name is. All right, so let's go over to the receiver side of things on Baltimore. So like I said, this is going to be up in the air. So when you're watching this, we don't have news yet.
Sammy Watkins this week? Jesus.
What'd you say?
Who priced Sammy Watkins? That's wrong. That's incredible. He should not be that expensive.
Well, look, Sammy Watkins had 82% of the snaps, above Mark Andrews, above Marquise Brown. He had 8 targets, 4 receptions. He had 27% target share. He's the guy. He had 38% of the air yards in this offense. He seems to be the guy this week, especially if Hollywood Brown is out. Obviously, Sammy Watkins is your number one option. But even more so with Devin Duvernay. If he's out, there's just going to be more options for Sammy Watkins. And, I know this is a revenge game, so I think that his ownership will be inflated slightly. So I don't mind being under the field on Sammy Watkins, depending on what his ownership is, because if it's in the 30% range or something, I wouldn't mind being under. But Marquise Brown, if he plays, I think is a great option. He's $9K. I don't love the price on him. I wish he was in the low 8,000s because it'd be a lot easier to fit him in. That might affect, especially his Q tag, might really affect his ownership tomorrow. He could come in way low owned, because he's such a boom bust guy. I think him at captain is a great option in this game. You get 2 long touchdowns out of him, and you're sitting pretty. There is the whole price point. 9,000 is not going to get you both quarterbacks unless you punt twice. So that's one thing to think about. When it comes to Duvernay, I was super high on him last week. He disappointed. 57% of the snaps. He had 2 targets on 1 reception. That is super disappointing. Didn't have a carry. There was no juice behind him, and I thought he was going to get some of those opportunities. He didn't. A couple of things to talk about here. Tylan Wallace and James Proche, whatever. These guys are $200, and I actually tried to jam some of them in last week just in case. But now we see what's going on here. I'm not going to play them if Hollywood Brown and Duvernay are both active and healthy. But Wallace and Proche, if one of these guys is out, they're going to get an opportunity. I think more so Proche, I believe. Let me actually look here. So Proche actually had 10% of the snaps last week. So expect that to double or so if one of these guys is out. Wallace is the 5th guy at this point. So I'm more likely to take Proche. And if Duvernay is out, Proche will be the return guy. So consider that as well. At $200, I think he's one of the best $200 guys if one of the 2 receivers is out. So talk to me about the wide receivers here. What are you thinking?
Love Hollywood Brown. If he's out, and then obviously I think that gives Sammy Watkins a huge boost. If Hollywood Brown is in, I don't like Sammy at all. And we're going to disagree on this one, but week 1 Sammy Watkins is not the same Sammy Watkins that we get the rest of the season, and we've seen that for the past 4 years.
I agree.
And now, again, this is a different offense. They need a true number 1 receiver. Hollywood Brown is a game breaker. He's a slot guy. He's not. And Tyreek Hill is 1 of 1 when it comes to being a number 1 wide receiver at 5'9" and 4.2 40 speed, right? Yeah. I've never seen a wide receiver of his prototype or his what he is be a number 1 in an offense.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Marquise Brown has game breaking ability, but he's not a number 1 wide receiver. No. So I think Sammy Watkins does have that opportunity on this team, right? He can become a true 1 receiver and allow Hollywood to do what he needs to do. But again, I mean, in my opinion, he just needs to prove it before I'm going to believe it. Other than that, bro, I mean, Duvernay at 2,200 is getting a little bit expensive for me based on the way that they use him in the offense. But and even if he's in, I still don't hate Tylan Wallace and James Proche. I think they're going to be tough plays. Yeah. But in a 150 max or something where you're doing a milli maker, you're going to need to take some weird stabs like that if you want to solo any of those. So I don't necessarily hate either of them. But I mean, if any one of the top 3 are out, then I think they become really interesting plays. But I still think that there's some other opportunities. You talked about some Blake Bell getting a carry last week. I think there's some tight end spots that you may be able to save some money again. And we're going to get to another guy here where I almost got really lucky last week. So we'll talk about that. But that's kind of where I'm at with the wide receiver core, man. I think Tylan Wallace does have some good opportunity he is a young rookie and could crush at some point. But other than that, I'm not going to get too much of them.
All right, so let's move over to KC side. We all know that Tyreek Hill is the man. This dude can break the slate. He scored 40 fantasy points or so last week. We know what his deal is. And I think you have to get either Tyreek or Kelsey. It's usually how things are every week. Last week, though, they both went off. So if they both go off, I think you're better off having Hill and Kelsey without Mahomes. You know? I think that's kind of where you're going to go. So if you think they're both going to have good games, I think you have to consider fading Mahomes, even though it sounds counterproductive. So Tyreek Hill's at 10.6K. And Ellie, I think you're frozen or something, but whatever, who cares?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, so who cares? That's all that matters. It's that damn Mexico internet. So Mecole Hardman at 4,600 is really interesting. So Mecole Hardman had 65% of the snaps last week. Tyreek Hill had 88%. Demarcus Robinson had 62% of the snaps. That's really interesting. So those are your top three guys. Those are the obvious top three guys. They're on the field quite a bit. Tyreek Hill had 15 targets for 11 receptions. He had 45% of the target share. Mecole Hardman was 3 for 3. He had 9%. So they didn't really target him much. And, you know, if we have some issues on the other side of the ball with cornerbacks being out, you might see a little bit more of the second and third string guys getting some more opportunities going up against backups for Baltimore. Something to think of. You're going to have to fit in a Mecole Hardman. You're going to have to fit in a Demarcus Robinson. And you're going to probably have to try to fit in Byron Pringle, even though Pringle only got, what did he get, 27% of the snaps at wide receiver. And look, this is all single game. We're all basing off of one game. It could all change. But this is the only thing we really have to base it off of. It was just last week. So I'm going to take that as a blueprint to kind of how I approach it this week. I don't love Byron Pringle that much, but he's at $1,200. I'd rather have Pringle than Ricard. I don't know. What do you think about, obviously Tyreek Hill's the man. Can we fit in Hardman, Robinson? Can we fit in a little bit of Pringle? Where are you going with that?
I won't be playing Robinson unless like Mecole Hardman just comes in at like 70% ownership. For as close as they are in price, I don't think Demarcus Robinson has the same kind of upside that Mecole Hardman's going to get.
Yeah,
Mecole Hardman is their number 2, 4,600. I have no problem getting to him. But I mean, if you're running Tyreek Hill and another one of these wide receivers, that means you're fading Kelsey. So yeah, I think it's going to be a kind of an interesting get up. But as far as punt plays, I don't mind Byron Pringle, and I almost prefer him over Captain Picard. But that's the reason why it's almost is just because we know Baltimore's out of options. Yeah. So Ricard's been in the offense long enough that he's probably going to end up with a reception or two, maybe even a carry or two. So I kind of favor him a little bit, but Byron Pringle does have that big play upside. Yeah. So, he could get one catch and 60 yards and a touchdown or whatever. Yeah. So I definitely think that he's viable. The other guys you've got up there sound like cereals. I've never heard of them before.
Cornell Powell.
Isn't he on the Dodgers?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not touching any of these guys. I just left them up because they're $200, and you might as well talk about them. After the whole Ricky Seals-Jones things in that last game, which I mentioned, and I left him in my player pool for a reason, but I didn't play any of them because it's a dart throw. I'm not playing any Cornell Powell, and if Cornell Powell scores, so be it. He's gonna be like 1%.
He'll have 0.4%. If he scores, nobody's gonna be screwed.
So one thing to add here, and this is a one game sample. I get it, but air yards wise, Demarcus Robinson was third on the team with 10%, and he did have one red zone target. So I don't think that really changes anything for me. I still prefer Mecole Hardman, especially at $600 more. You're talking about, I know that they're similar with snap share at 65% for Mecole and 62% for Demarcus Robinson. I personally think Mecole Hardman is a guy to target. I think the field will be, I think they'll agree with us. So let's move over to tight end here. there's really not a whole lot to talk about. Play Kelsey if you can. He's 10.4K. I think you can look. There's not going to be a single person, unless you're watching this show, that would ever play Kelsey and Bell together or Kelsey and Gray together. Like, it's not a popular build, but I think you can think about maybe getting a little bit of Blake Bell. He played 27% of the snaps last week. He did have a rush for a first down. He's the kind of guy that might get you 1 or 2 catches, but maybe it's a 15-yard reception or something, or maybe it's a from the 3-yard line target, something like that. And I think at $600, you really got to consider him. I think he's one of my favorite, really, really, really low options. And by favorite, he's the probability of him doing well is very low. But with a game like this, you got to fit one of these guys in. So Blake Bell is an option. So with Kelsey, dude had two red zone targets and 2 touchdowns. He's a monster in the red zone. I personally would rather play Kelsey. Oh, actually, here's what I'm going to do. If I'm doing cash or if I'm doing single entry, I'm going to play Kelsey more. If I'm doing large field tournaments, I'm going to try to fit in Tyreek Hill more. So thoughts on these tight ends, and do you agree or disagree with me with what I just said with the Kelsey and Hill thing?
No, I don't disagree at all, man. I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, we're in an interesting position. I mean, it's so hard to kind of choose between Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey that, like, you're gonna have to probably just split your lineups down the middle. And in the pricing that you have for a guy like Blake Bell, I just don't think I don't think you're going to be putting yourself in any kind of a bad situation running, Travis Kelsey and Blake Bell in the same lineup, for example.
Yeah.
I really kind of like what you were saying about him, dude. $600. I mean, he is going to get a little bit of love in the run game. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, remember, we're talking. We don't even have gadget players on the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you have a gadget offense.
Yeah.
Like, it literally doesn't matter what your role is. You have an opportunity to score a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
And these are the kind of guys that we're taking, random stabs on. Blake Bell, and then especially if you start looking at any one of these players out on the secondary, right? If Marlon Humphreys or Jimmy Smith are out, that's going to put a lot of pressure on some of the DBs to focus on Hill and Kelsey, and that's going to leave some dumb shit for like Mecole Hardman or
slot,
Blake Bell and just these random periphery players. Yeah. So I think that look, man, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, dude. Like, I don't know if there's a reason to try and justify that I don't know if you need to justify playing anybody. It's like they are all in position to score a touchdown at any point in the time in the day. So,
yep.
I mean, as long as they're active and you think that they'll get snaps, I think that they're viable. Guys like, I don't know if you even have them on your player pool, but Jody Fortson and Noah Gray, like I will not have any one of those. Yeah. We know that Blake Bell is going to get run, so at $600, why not play him for a little bit?
At that amount, that percentage of snaps, like, it's the same thing with Ricky Seals-Jones. I think he was at 32% of the snap share for week 1. And that's why I kept him in my player pool, because if he's on the field for 30% of the snaps, potentially more, opportunity is king in Showdown. If you're on the field, you can score. And if you're on the field, I feel relatively confident in playing you in at least a couple lineups. If you're not on the field, no, I'm not going to do it. All right, so let's move over to the other side of the ball, to Baltimore. And before we actually get into it, I want to do our horse's mouth segment, because Mark Andrews has been a little bit disappointing this year. Well, I mean, it's been 1 game, but they've been really keying. The defenses have been keying in on him. After he got paid, man, they're double teaming, triple teaming him, and he's at 6,200, man. That is so appealing to me, especially a captain at 6,200. So we're gonna play a couple sound bites about Mark Andrews here.
Just want to know from the horse's mouth, what is the dealio?
All right, so this is Lamar
It looks like a lot of teams are trying to not let you get the ball to Mark Andrews. They're trying to take him away.
3 people guard Mark Andrews. Ever since they found out about the deal, they like, I don't know what's going on, man.
Is there something you guys can? Is it something like, okay, if they're going 3, that's fine, or is there still certain ways that you can still get him the ball?
We gonna get Mark that ball. We gotta get Mark that ball, man. He a dynamic player. He made my job a lot easier. Probably not with 3 people on him. Probably gonna go to someone else, but man, we gonna try. Cause that's my guy, man.
I really hope he's right, because he really didn't get a lot of run last week for whatever reason. Let's look at his numbers from last week. Snap share 81%. He was on the field quite a bit. Targets 5, receptions 3, 16% target share. Not great. He had 16% of the air yards, no red zone targets. I think that's going to change this week. I think this week, as long as they can find a way to get him open, they're going to have to find a way to get him the ball this week, especially if Marquise Brown is out. I think if Marquise Brown is out, Mark Andrews at 6,200, this is a similar situation with Logan Thomas, where I went super heavy on Logan Thomas and it didn't work out too well for me, but I'm willing to die on that cross with Mark Andrews again at 6,200. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Hey, so I don't want to get too far ahead of this, but I'm pretty sure I know who your captain is, just seeing this right now.
Actually, you're going to be be but
oh yeah,
but
because dude, he might be the prime captain for this game.
I agree.
Just now that I kind of look at it, and I don't know how I missed this on the first glance, but at that price, he might. Yeah, I might have 70% of him at captain.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that, and we'll build with him quite a bit. He hasn't been looking good recently. That's a lot of red right there, even going into last season. He got paid. Maybe they figured out how to stop him. I don't know what it is. It's a little worrisome, but at the beginning of last year, he was one of the top tight ends in the league. I think he's fallen down into almost the 3rd tier at this point. At this point, with public opinion, that's why he's at 6,200, but I don't think he belongs there. I think he belongs right along with Waller, potentially. This is just not a pass-heavy offense like it is with some of these other big-time tight ends. For me, Mark Andrews is nearly a lock for me at 6,200, and I'm going to have a ton of captain with him. Yeah. And if I lose, I lose. I mean, honestly, you're going to have to get risky.
Mark Andrews is, dude. I get he's struggled, but let's not play down the injuries that he was going through yesterday. He was struggling physically, and let's also not forget that even though this is I'm sorry to cut you off, but even though this is a run heavy offense, this offense still sucks when it comes to position players. Yeah. They don't have anybody else out there. So it's not just Mark Andrews' fault that he's not out there making big plays. Somebody has to take the pressure off of him and Lamar, right? And Hollywood, again, I still think Hollywood needs to do some more stepping up, but he's never healthy as well. So, those are things that are impacting his numbers. And 6,200 is just incorrectly priced. Even 7,200 to 7,500 would be better. He's cheaper than Tyson Williams.
Yeah, so, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, man. I just think he's too good of a play at that price.
If I had to choose between sitting Mark Andrews completely and fading one of the big 3, Lamar, Mahomes, or Hill, I'd rather fade one of the big 3 and get Mark Andrews in, because you're going to get more bang for your buck, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Eric Tomlinson, no reason to really talk about him, but the guy. All right, tell your story, Ellie. Josh Oliver, $200. Let me get into his little bit of stats, and then you tell me what you did with him last week. He had only 7% of the snaps. He did have 1 target, and he had 1 red zone target, actually end zone target. And he had 6% of the air yards for the team. So talk to me about Josh Oliver.
Yeah, dude. Again, $200. The only reason I played him was just a pure punt play. He looked like he could end up with a target or 2, and it just so happened he got a red zone target. He scores that touchdown. That's a completely different lineup for that contest, right? Yeah. So, when you have guys like this, when you have Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce on the slate, you have to find someone that you're comfortable doing that with. And I'm not saying go put Josh Oliver and 19 out of your 20 lineups. Put him in maybe 1 out of 20 or maybe like 5 out of 150. That's what you would do with a guy like that at $200.
Yeah.
Anything else is a little bit egregious, but you're gonna have to rotate one of these guys in there if you want to solo anything. I mean, if you want to share, chop up the milli a couple different ways, that's fine. I mean, 10 grand's 10 grand,
Yeah.
but you keep in mind that you got to keep an eye on some of these guys.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of the times, these milli makers, it's like they split, hundreds and hundreds of ways, and it's like $1,200, and you end up losing money in first place.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get over to the kickers here. I think you can actually, unfortunately, I think you have to consider the kickers more than usual in this game, especially for Baltimore. You get Justin Tucker. Basically, if he kicks the ball, it's going to go in. I mean, the dude's a baller. He was 3 for 3 on extra points, 2 for 2 on field goals over 50. Oh no, under 50. Is that what that is? That's weird. That's a weird stat. Anyways, 3,600 for Justin Tucker. This team, unless they can figure it out in the red zone, unless they can get Mark Andrews a little bit more separation, he might be, just like the last game, just like that Thursday night game where the kickers took over. What was it? Graham Gano, who absolutely crushed it in that game.
Yeah,
so,
dude, he's in my season long.
Yeah, I actually have him too. I was surprised. I think he had 22 points on my ESPN league. So that's a little bit of a reminder. Just I hate kickers. I hate playing kickers on Showdown. But it's a little bit of a reminder. You have to pay attention to these guys. And in my opinion, I think I'll never play both of them together. But if you're around 15 to 20% exposure on these guys at 3,600, I think it's probably smart because, especially in cash or single entry, you just got to jam either one of these guys in. More specifically, Tucker, in my opinion, because even if the Chiefs score 35 points, mostly touchdowns, it's not, those extra points aren't going to do anything. And in my opinion, I think they should make the extra points worth like 2 points because of how long they are in the past few years. They should probably make those 2 points just to make it worth having kickers on the slate at this point, because kickers, I mean, they got removed from main slate. They're in my opinion, on the fringe of almost never playing. Every once in a while, you'll get kickers depending on the game script in the optimal. But I think they should change the scoring next year. Maybe add another point or two for extra points just to make it a little bit more interesting. So Ellie, Harrison Butker and Justin Tucker, are you just going to be along with the field? Do you have any sort of insight that I don't here?
No. I mean, I'll have a little bit of exposure to them just because they're priced nice, and you don't have to find people that you're comfortable with, having it cheap in there. So I think you have to have a little bit of them, but I think the field's going to have a bunch of them as well. Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is, I mean, for 200 more, do you want to go from Butker to Demarcus Robinson, or 1,000 more, go from him to Mecole Hardman? So those are things. 3,600 Justin Tucker is interesting, though. Yeah. I mean, the offense could simply be Lamar and Justin Tucker. So I don't think that's a terrible idea. Just again, I mean, I would expect them to be around 15 to 25% ownership just based on their price and their requirement for this slate. So you're probably looking at a fairly chalky build whenever you're putting in kickers.
Yeah, and this week, because of the high-priced players that you need to jam in, they're gonna like those couple hundred lineups I crunched. I had a kicker in almost every lineup. So to me, that signifies, okay, I'd rather just go under the field a little bit and go with the Demarcus Robinson, or even go down to Pringle or one of these guys and risk it in tournaments. When it comes to single entry, I'll have Justin Tucker in my single entry. There's no reason not to. I'm not scared of that. There's a much higher floor than Demarcus Robinson with Tucker, but the ceiling is a lot lower. So defense, 3,400 for the Chiefs, 3,200 for the Ravens. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to play any. I usually don't play defense. People love playing defense because they love seeing themselves in first place for the first quarter. You got the double defenses, and if you fade the defenses, you look like, oh man, all my lineups are sucking. And all these dudes with double defenses in are like, yes, taking screenshots and posting them. At the end of the day, this is a 54-point total. I think that the Ravens and the Chiefs both have opportunity. We didn't talk about it, but Honey Badger's back, so that could change things a little bit. But they both have an opportunity to score a touchdown in this game. I get it. And at 3,200 and 3,400, it might be the way to go in a 54 total instead of playing the kickers. You might throw a defense in. You might throw Ravens defense in every once in a while. It's risky. You probably get your ass kicked. But 3,200, you're going to have to find one of these guys. So are you considering defense any more this week because no one's really going to be paying attention to them?
I'll play the Chiefs if, and this sounds silly, but if Marlon Humphrey and Jimmy Smith's out, I think it becomes a different game entirely. So I think the Chiefs become a little bit more interested in a scenario like that. But other than that, I probably won't have any of either defense. I mean, even on Thursday night when the Washington football team was priced up and looked like they were in a prime position to do okay, they still scored 4 points.
Yeah.
Right.
And we talked about that. It's just not worth it at that price. And it's not worth it at that ownership.
Right. And I legitimately had the optimal lineup excluding that one position, right? They got me 4 points and that cost me a decent amount of money. I was still in the top 100 with that lineup. So if I switch off of that to another player, like literally Graham Gano, like paying like $3,000 less and getting a kicker, as much as it pains me to say, would have cost me. It would have made me a
could have got a car or something, maybe.
Right, exactly. So like that's something to keep an eye on, right? I mean, that was in a 44 point total where the defenses destroyed us. So now let's keep in mind there were very limited takeaways and things like that. But again, you're talking about 1 point. You need to pick 6 in a scenario like that to get it to work. Now, Chiefs Ravens, this is not, unless there's some kind of injury that just slows everything down, this is not a game that you just want to start throwing in these defenses. I mean, you're going to get shredded.
So Thursday night, I actually called it that it was going to go over, and I called it, 35-31. I think it was, Giants. I was close, but my point was, I think that if you just think about it differently, especially in this slate, if you think that maybe this can come in the under, and you want to go a little bit more conservative and throw a kicker in, throw a defense in every now and then, you're going to be way different in the field because everybody is thinking about it. It's almost better to do a different roster construction when focusing on the under and more rushing yards, a little bit slower pace for a game like this than to punt on a $200 guy in every lineup or something like that. It's almost better to just roster construction wise just think different, and especially in a game like this. All right, so let's get to our fade of the night. Ellie, you're going Seth?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as much as I don't think that. I think this game will stay a little bit competitive, and he just is hard to get the volume that he needs to kind of pay off when you have guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Pat Mahomes. But again, if this will change if he's under probably like 20% ownership. And remember, Josh Jacobs was 14% the other night, right? So those are things that I'm specifically paying attention to now, especially after that specific one for Josh Jacobs. I'm paying closer attention to the running backs. And then again, if there's injuries on the Baltimore defense, then I think that opens up more opportunity for Allaire. And another one, I think you had Calais Campbell on there on the injury. He's one of those other guys that's old as hell, so he's listed as questionable all the time. Yeah.
He's not listed, actually. He's not listed questionable. He just didn't participate for veteran rest.
Okay, so I know this is a little so veteran rest. I mean, you keep an eye on that old dude. I mean, he is one of their top run stoppers. Yeah. So if he, for whatever reason, happened to be limited or not play, then I think that does give Seth a boost. But other than that, I just don't care about him.
And look, Josh Jacobs still got there against Baltimore. Yeah. He got 2 touchdowns, but he didn't do really anything fantastic. And minus those 2 touchdown carries, I know obviously he scored, it counted. But besides that, he's a major fail in that game. So, I hear you on CEH. I'm actually a little bit higher on him than you are because of his price. And just watching that game last week, he got plenty of opportunities. He's clear number 1. I think there is an opportunity for him to maybe get a couple red zone carries, but we saw him last year in his rookie year. They'd give him the ball 100 times at the goal line and he'd score once maybe. Like, he's just not the guy to do that. So I think if you play CEH, you're hoping to get over 100 yards and a couple catches. You're probably not relying on that touchdown, even though you're going to need a touchdown at him to be in the optimal. So for me, I'm staying away from the Baltimore backup running backs again. You know, it's sexy to try to put in a $400 Devontae Freeman. We all know his name. We all know Le'Veon Bell, which if I had to bet, I would say, you know, one of those guys will be inactive. And, you know, Lat Murray at 5,200 or whatever he was. That's just, if Lat Murray should be in like the 3,000 range. Because that's what he's been his whole career. That's why I've loved him. That's why I've loved playing him. He's been 2,200, 3,000, 1,600. If he's in that range, I'm playing a ton of him. At 5,400, come on. The guy's not going to get you 100 yards. He's not going to get you two touchdowns. And if he does, you know, I'm wrong. I'll admit it. But he's just, the probability of that happening is super low. So I'm fading the backup running backs. I'm putting all my attention to Tyson Williams when it comes to the running game. I might not do a whole lot of running game in this matchup. You know, I think I'm going to focus more on passing. But if I do go to the running backs, I'm going to go to Tyson Williams 100%. I don't think I'm going to actually play any backup running backs besides a little bit of Lat Murray. Do you are you on the same page, or do you have a different opinion?
No, I agree with you entirely.
All right. So let's get over to the Crown Their Ass. This is our favorite captain for tournaments on DraftKings.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
We're crowning their ass. Ellie, if Hollywood Brown plays, you're all in on him, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
not all in,
but
but
it switched a little bit because of the price discrepancy on Mark Andrews. But I like Hollywood Brown, right? I think he's a very good contrarian captain option. We all know who the top options are going to be. It's going to be Lamar, Pat, Travis, and Tyreek, right? I think Hollywood could go a little bit under the radar just because of the way that he's priced. And you know, I mean, he's been underwhelming, but the Chiefs defense, they have holes. They have opportunities to get burned, and who knows what we're going to get from them. I mean, they were a little bit better last year, but their offense is what keeps them in games, not necessarily the defense. So I definitely think Hollywood Brown has some decent upside. And again, just as a contrarian play, I'm not too upset about getting him in there.
Yeah, and last week we talked about Hollywood Brown being a solid captain option over a flex option, because if he goes off, he goes off. And I think it's the same thing this week. If he plays, especially with DuVernay out, there's going to be a lot more targets, a couple more targets his way. There's just not as many options. And we saw him go off to a certain extent, but I think if he gets you that 70-yard touchdown reception in this game at that price tag, it's pretty interesting. So for me, Hardman, I don't love Mecole Hardman, but his price tag at 4,600 and his projection, along with the amount of snaps he's going to be on the field, he's the clear number 2 wide receiver. He's the 3rd overall option in this offense when it comes to passing. I think that makes his upside really high. And I think you put him at captain, just some of the builds I did earlier, you could fit in 3 of this. You can fit in both quarterbacks, one of the studs, and another medium price guy, and only punt really at one position. So Hardman is my favorite contrarian option to get a solid lineup across the board. If you have all the studs in the flex and he gets you 1 touchdown, he doesn't need to be the highest scoring player. He just needs to actually perform, and as long as your flex positions with all the studs go off, you should be okay. I personally like Mark Andrews more. Like, the probability of him outscoring Hardman, in my opinion, is higher. And they're not priced that much different. It's like $1,400. I'm gonna have more Mark Andrews at captain, but my favorite contrarian option is Hardman. Do you like Hardman in this matchup?
Let's find out, bro. I think we start with him at the cap there at the lineup build,
because you're gonna really see what's possible here,
right?
And there's really no other way to analyze this, but just build lineups. That's what it's all about. So let's pop him in. Let me see if I can find him. He's way low here. Where is he at? Mecole Hardman. His captain price is 6.9K. So let's optimize with him at captain, see what happens. So, of course, they're going to throw in Devontae Freeman at 400. Don't like that. But you get both quarterbacks and Tyreek Hill. And CEH. So you're talking about 4 solid options and a punt with Mecole at captain. With other higher price, higher probability captains, you're going to have 2 or 3 good options and 2 punts, most likely. So let's hand build the rest of this. So let's do Patty and Lamar. Do you want to go Kelsey or Tyreek here?
Let's start with Tyreek.
Okay. Now let's try to fit in Mark Andrews here. At least it was with 1900. So with 1900, that gets us not quite Duvernay, but it gets us Pringle or Ricard.
I don't mind either of them. Let's see, we got Hardman.
Let's get a nice 3-3. Let's get a 3-3 here. So this is just a solid baseline. I would actually, I don't know. I don't think I would play this maybe single entry. But this is going to be a super low owned stack. Super low owned lineup in my opinion. How can we make this a little bit better? Do you want to go Kelsey instead of Hill?
Yeah, let's see what that does.
Let's see if that does anything. 2100, still short of Duvernay. That would be perfect for Duvernay. So it doesn't really do anything for us. There's really no other option that we can get to. So I think that you can take this lineup and switch out Kelsey, Hill, switch out Ricard with Pringle, like do a couple different variations, have 5 or 6 lineups with this structure and kind of switch people in and out. Now, one thing to talk about here, if you want to be real different, one thing to talk about is fading. This is risky, but in one lineup, do a roster construction where you leave out Kelsey and Hill and see what happens there. Nobody's going to do that for good reason, because it's probably stupid, but we've seen stupider things happen. So let's try that. But we won't need to actually leave out Hardman. So let's take Hardman out of captain and let's put like Mark Andrews in, and then we'll fade the 2 big receivers to start and see if it's even worth doing. So let's put in Mark Andrews. Let's go both quarterbacks. Who do you want now? You want to do Hollywood Brown?
No, not if we have Mark Andrews. Let's throw in we're fading. Yeah, if we're fading to let's go Tyson Williams.
6,800. That leaves us with 4,700 apiece. This is going to be well-rounded. Who do we go with here? We got to go with if we're fading both guys from KC, we got to go with a Hardman or Demarcus Robinson, don't you think?
Yeah, let's throw in Hardman and then probably. You got to go Justin Tucker, 4,900.
I mean, look, you could do this.
One of the kickers, or
you could do Robinson and Hardman stacked with Mahomes, and run it back with Jackson, Williams, and Andrews. It's risky, but look, this is one game. There is a chance that maybe Kelsey with 1 touchdown at his ownership or at his price tag he might not make the optimal if this hits the over.
Right.
So it's interesting, but you could take out Robinson, you could pop in a kicker, obviously. So what, Tucker? Or no, you want to go Harrison Butker there? You're leaving a lot on the table.
What can we get up to? Yeah, it's either you play Nicole or and DeMarcus, or
that's pretty much it. Or you go down to the kickers.
Yeah, I don't even think we can go up off of anybody from Tyson, can we?
I don't think I want to.
Can we swap out to CEH?
Yeah, let's see what we can do here. Actually, that's a great idea. Let's say CEH gets you 2 red zone touchdowns. That makes sense. This lineup makes more sense. So 4,300, Demarcus Robinson or the kickers.
So I think, I think you come off of probably Nicole and Demarcus Robinson. You play Harrison Butker, and then see what we have on the Ravens side if we can.
Harrison Butker, $500 remaining. That's solid, dude. You got Mahomes, Lamar, CEH, and Mark Andrews. You toss in Hardman and Butker. You're not really punting at all. You're talking about putting in the number 2 wide receiver on a high-powered offense as your punt, pretty much. And I feel pretty good about that, especially at that. If he's really projected around 10 points, which I think is a little high for him, that's a solid option.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. And then, you can just switch out the kicker. McCall, if you want to go down to...
You could go to Robinson. Let's actually try this. I'm sorry, I cut you off here, but 40.
No, that's what I was going to say.
Okay, cool. So 4,300. That's still there's no difference.
Well, if you
put
Robinson over Hardman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked the wrong one. Let's see what it does. 4,900.
You should be able to get to.
No, can't get anybody.
Yeah,
Can't quite get up to Lat Murray, which I don't think we'd want to anyways. So this is interesting. So,
yeah, either way, I don't hate it. But here's the thing to keep in mind, right? Like, you're going to have to be weird like this. Mark Andrews at captain, right? Yeah. We're seeing what kind of builds that we have potentially available. So if we play Mark Andrews at captain and he's projected at 6% ownership, then you can see a majority of those 6% lineups are going to be similar to what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
So, like, we may need to even, I mean, maybe
I disagree,
we don't.
Though. I disagree because I think we're super different by not having Hill or Kelsey in this lineup.
Oh, yeah. No, specific. So in this lineup, yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to need to do.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
With the Mark Andrews captain.
Yeah.
Because look, if you're playing a cheap captain, the purpose of doing that is to get as many high value players you can, right? Or high projected points. So when you fade those two guys that you're looking at and you force Mahomes and Lamar in, and you get, I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility, right? Yeah. Everybody who does this with Mark Andrews is going to try and get Kelsey and or Hill. Mm-hmm. So this is a great way to kind of stay different without getting real crazy.
Yeah. So another option here would be let's get rid of one of the quarterbacks and go with a solo version of Hill or Kelsey. So who do you want to throw in instead? Let's leave Mahomes out of this one.
Yeah, let's keep Lamar.
Let's keep Lamar. I'm not going to go zero quarterbacks at all. In my opinion, that's not smart. It's different, but it doesn't mean it's smart. Let's go with Kelsey just to start, and we'll see if we can switch them out. So it leaves us with 6.1K ish. To build the rest of this. Let's throw one more Baltimore guy in here. And I think
let's throw in CEH, honestly. Okay. I think we're gonna go from unless you were gonna throw in Tyson Williams right now.
Well, I think we can throw them both.
Yeah, that's actually not terrible.
You know what I mean? You throw in both of these dudes. If you're fading the wide receivers for the most part, you got 2 tight ends and 1 quarterback, the odds are that the running backs have to do something. So that leaves us 4,300. So that's another Demarcus Robinson. That's another, actually just Demarcus Robinson. I don't hate it. I know Mahomes isn't in it, but I love Andrews at captain. There's so many different options.
And then here you can pivot off Kelsey and go to Hill.
Yeah.
I think you can just make that decision.
Yep. So you can do multiple lineups with either. Yep, that works out even better. $100 remaining. This is great.
And then, if you don't like Demarcus Robinson, right, you can switch down to one of the kickers. Yep. Obviously, Butker and Tucker are still there.
Yep, you can go either one of the kickers. You could get stupid with it and go one of the defenses. I wouldn't do that, but there's options. You can leave over 1,000 on the table and do something different. All right, so I think the consensus here is Mark Andrews is you have the most high probability options in the flex if you put him at captain as opposed to Mecole Hardman. You do have a lot of good options, but Hardman outscoring Andrews, it could happen. I'd just rather put my money on Andrews. So who should we build with now? Should we throw in like a Hill or Kelsey at captain?
Let's have we done Hollywood Brown yet?
No. Oh yeah, let's do Hollywood Brown. All right, Hollywood Brown. So I don't know. What do you want to do? You want to throw Lamar in?
Yeah, let's throw in Lamar.
I know he wasn't in the optimal last week, but the chances of him not being in the optimal 2 weeks in a row are pretty low.
I just don't think there's the chances of him not being in the optimal are low in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
You don't need to even look at the previous week to figure that out.
Every showdown slate we've ever done, he's always been the guy. All right, where do we go here? You want to do Tyson or do you want to do Andrews?
Let's go Tyson and then let's throw in Pat and see where we can go from there.
Put in Patty, 2,600 a pop. So we got to go with one of these Pringle guys. We got to go with a punt.
Let's throw in Blake Bell.
Okay. $600. I like it. His ownership's gonna be super low.
Nicole Hardman. I actually don't hate this at all.
Yeah. Nicole, look at that with $100 left. It's like it was meant to be. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, this isn't a terrible lineup, and I mean at $600, you can just punt that. I mean, if you want to throw in Devontae Freeman, I mean, Roto Grinders has him at 3.5 projected, right? Yeah. Devontae Freeman. So
yeah,
I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but if you want to, it's a pure punt play anyways. Like you're just trying to find a person that you think can get 2 to 6 fantasy points, maybe a touchdown. So I don't hate this. This is cool.
Now we're leaving out Hill and Kelsey. I get it. It's probably not the way to go in too many of your lineups, but you know, we got to be risky. All right, so let's do a lineup with. I want to try to see if we can fit in Kelsey, Mahomes, and Hill in a lineup together. Let's see what we got to do. Let's see what kind of crazy shit we got to do. So, who would we have to throw at captain in order to do that? Is this a Mark Andrews situation?
I don't know. Let's start with. Let's just put in the 3 in flex and kind of see what we're at.
Optimize it. Okay. So Patty, Hill, and Kelsey. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, CEH. Yeah, but then you got Nicole. I don't like that. So let's go down from CEH.
Is that a 5-1?
Yeah, I think so.
Jesus.
Oh, wait. Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, with Freeman, the only guy from Baltimore? Come on. Come on, guys. All right. Let's put in like a... Let's put in either Tyson or Mark Andrews. What do you think? Mark Andrews?
At captain, yeah.
Oh, at captain.
You can't get Tyson or you can't get anybody else. You'd have to run 2,000 players. You were at like 5,400.
Oh, you're right. All right, so let's put Mark Andrews at captain. God, we're gonna have to get weird, man. I'm gonna spend hours tomorrow building. Because you're just going to get weird.
Okay, now you run Tyson. Actually, what about Tyson at captain?
Oh, you know what? I like it.
That actually saved me a little bit of money the other night.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Kind of hedged some of my others.
So you want to punt at one of these? You want to go Pringle or you want to go Bell? You want to go... What do you want to do? Oh, you want to do...
Throw in Andrews again.
Oh, we can't.
Can you?
No, we can't. He's 60. We have 6,200 remaining, unless there was like a guy for like a 0.
Justin Tucker.
Tucker.
And then, what does that leave? 2,600. DuVernay.
DuVernay, if he plays, that's not bad. I
actually might run a lineup like this.
Yeah.
The amount of raw points that you can get. I mean, that's projected for 96. Right.
Median, yeah.
I think the top projection is 108, just with Lamar at captain or whatever the optimal is right now. So I mean that's a kind of a big discrepancy. But again, like who knows, right? If Kelsey and Hill both have 2 touchdowns, like if the 4 touchdowns between them, you will lose if you don't have both of them in your lineup.
Yeah.
So. Hey, did you know that it's pronounced Kels?
Kels. Isn't that weird? But no one's going to ever call him that.
Ever.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's pronounced Kels, but they call me Kelsey, so I just kind of let it happen. And we call his brother Kelsey, too.
Yeah, the whole family.
The next generation of Kelses, they're all going to be just, all right, we're Kelsey now.
Well, I think they don't want to get mixed up with Kels, like R. Kelly.
Kels?
Yeah.
All right, so what other weird stuff should we do here? I like
fade the slate.
Yeah, just save your money. All right, let's leave the Kelsey Hill Mahomes for one more. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. I know we're going a little long here, but it's going to take some time to build some good lineups here. Let's do a little bit different here. Let's do like a 2-4, reverse 2-4 with Baltimore. So can we go Mark Andrews at captain? Is that even possible?
Yeah. I mean, I still think we have to play Justin Tucker.
So Andrews and Tucker.
I mean, what
3,500? What does that leave us? Darrell Williams or defenses? Let's see if we can. We're gonna have to punt twice here.
Well, so throwing Tyson Williams.
Oh yeah, $300. Let's find our $200 guy here. Josh Oliver, Jerick McKinnon, James Proche.
I mean, I don't care. Any of them are fine. I think I like Josh Oliver's fine.
So you can go Proche, you can go Oliver, John. You can go John Oliver here.
Yeah, this isn't terrible.
This is
it's
nice.
ballsy, but
It's ballsy, but this allows you. This is what you're gonna have to do to get the Holy Trinity from Kansas City. You're gonna have to do something weird. You're gonna have to probably. I mean, I wouldn't want to put Mecole Hardman at captain with Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes in the flex. That's probably stupid. So you're gonna have to go somewhere from Baltimore, and you're gonna have to find that one guy from Baltimore who has a good game in a potential blowout. You know. All right. Anything else you want to try?
no, I think we're running out of options at this point.
The moral of the story here is pretty much if you're going to want to get those three guys in, you're going to have to do something weird. I think you're probably going to have to do something weird in general because, having
pay attention to the lineups, man. I mean, inactives could change this whole thing tomorrow too. You know,
totally. Like I said, if Hollywood Brown is out, if that's huge. If DuVernay is out, that's medium level. I think it boosts some of these other $200 guys like Proche and Wallace or any of those other fourth, fifth string wide receivers. It will boost them a little bit. Proche will now be a punt returner, which doesn't mean a whole lot. I wish they would give us like 1 point for every 50 kickoff and punt return yards. You know, it kind of makes it interesting on Showdown. You can get guys like DuVernay in more. But anyways, like I said, if you have DuVernay out, I don't think it's as big of an impact. If he plays, it actually helps a lot because he's at a good price. So Ellie, what are some predictions for tomorrow? What do you think this game's going to be like?
I'm gonna have a bold take. I don't think Patrick Mahomes ends up in the optimal. I think he throws for 220 and 3 touchdowns, and that's kind of it. But don't misconstrue that. I will still have 95% exposure to it. Like my bold take is not that much, but and then I think the Chiefs win, probably 31 to like 14, 17. Yeah.
I'm going to go a little weird again this time. I'm going to go 28-24 Chiefs. I think it's going to be a close game going into the fourth quarter. And, the Ravens just don't have enough offensive firepower to keep up.
Yeah.
But I think this could hit the under. That's 52 points, right, that I said?
I don't think you're crazy there, man.
I think it could be close to around 50, but I think I would actually bet the old man under on this one, to be honest. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for watching. We'll be back for Monday Night Football. Ellie, are you going to be sober enough to do a Monday Night Football game tomorrow, maybe?
I think so.
We'll see.
If not, it'll just be a more fun show, right?
Even if you're not sober, who cares? Whatever. We'll figure it out. We're doing this for free. Who cares? Hit us up in the Discord on Twitter, obviously. Join the Discord, and when injury news comes out, we'll have more information about that. We'll be talking about our exposures and all that in there. So hit us up. Thank you guys. Subscribe, like. We appreciate it. Thank you.